Greetings, true champions of the cause. Welcome to Starplanet Beyond the Canon, a showcase of literary fan works from across the multiverse, featuring your favorite intellectual properties. In today's episode, we will be featuring Chapter 2 of the Siberian Experiment, fan work inspired by 20th Century Fox's Alien and Predator franchises. When a meteor hits the Siberian wilderness, military personnel find more than they bargained for. The Siberian Experiment was published on the 26th of December, 2022. Somewhere in the heavens, they are waiting. Now, dear travelers, let's begin. Military base, Western Russia. Katya's plane touched down on the icy runway, its wheels hissing against the frost-bitten asphalt. Engines roared from other aircraft nearby, disgorging squads of soldiers, their boots striking the ground in a steady rhythm. A swirl of jet exhaust and winter air carried with it the harsh scent of fuel, metal, and damp uniforms. For a moment, Katya scanned the faces spilling out onto the tarmac. Army, Air Force, Marines. Too many branches represented in one place. Something unusual was brewing, though she didn't yet know what. Until she had the full picture, judgment would wait. Captain. Lieutenant Maxim Petrov appeared at her side, his salute crisp but softened by a faint smile as she returned it. Once the formality passed, he fell into step beside her, boots crunching on frost as they crossed the base grounds. Her men trusted her. She'd been told as much by her superiors, though she valued the quiet loyalty of her soldiers more than any commendation written on paper. She led from the front, shoulder to shoulder, sharing the cold, the mud, and the weight of long marches, just as her brother once had. Orders rang hollow, in her view, if they came from an officer who stayed clean and comfortable, while others risked blood and bone. But outside eyes rarely approved. They called her reckless, accused her of failing to enforce the iron distance expected of a commander. What happens when she's shot? Who leads then? That was their chorus. She'd silenced them with two simple arguments. First, she couldn't command effectively if she had no idea what her people were enduring. Second, her units trained under one guiding principle. Every soldier had to know the job above them. If she fell, the lieutenant beneath her could take command without hesitation. Rumors had spread regardless. Whispers of beds warmed for advancement, or favors traded through her father's influence. Filth disguised as gossip. She ignored it. Refuting it only fed the fire. Status? She asked Petrov as they neared the barracks. Half the unit has reported in. Command is calling for a briefing. Your attendance mandatory, he replied, handing her a folded slip of paper. Katya skimmed the note and tucked it into her pocket with a sigh. You'll handle things here? Petrov nodded. Of course, Captain. He gave a sharp turn and moved off, leaving her outside the locker room. Inside, the air was sharp with detergent and the faint musk of fatigued soldiers. She unzipped her duffel and changed quickly. Olive tea, combat trousers with reinforced knees, fleece jacket patterned in Russian-issue camouflage. Her boots, already laced tight, spared her one task. With her uniform snug and her hair tied back, she looked every inch the officer she was expected to be. The meeting room was already filling when she arrived. Major Mishkin greeted her with a thin smile. Captain Mikhailov, glad you could join us. She saluted, masking her weariness. Glad to be here, sir. One by one, commanders filtered in, some still in travel-worn gear, others half-buttoned and smelling faintly of jet fuel. A sudden bark of "Attention!" cut the chatter, and all rose to their feet. The man who entered froze Katya in place. The marshal, of the Russian Federation, the highest uniformed officer in the nation, a step below the president himself. His presence sent a chill through the room, heavier than the winter air outside. This wasn't routine. "At ease," the marshal said, voice low yet carrying through the hall. Chairs scraped as officers sat again, every eye fixed on him. "First, my apologies for canceled leave. Extend that to your men. Russia owes you for this." He paused only briefly before continuing. "The president has ordered mandatory evacuations across Siberia. Those regions projected to be struck by the meteor must be cleared." One officer raised a hand. "So this is not a drill?" "No, this is no exercise. Search and rescue cannot cover such a vast span, so your units will reinforce." The marshal's words tightened something in Katya's chest. Spetsnaz called in for civilian evacuation? Absurd. Regular troops could handle that. Her people were trained for precision strikes, reconnaissance, counter-terror, not shuttling families from farmhouses. And worse, the Meteor's projected landing zone had been publicized for weeks. Empty wilderness, far from settlements. The official story didn't match the orders. Katya sat back in her chair, her expression composed, but inside her thoughts sharpened. Something here reeked of deception, and the marshal's presence only confirmed it. The marshal's finger cut through the room like a blade as he acknowledged a bold officer who had raised the question Katya herself wanted to ask. The meteor wasn't predicted to impact anywhere that could cause much harm. Why are we evacuating? Katya didn't know the man's name, but she silently applauded him. Someone had finally broken the silence. "Be that as it may," the marshal replied evenly, his gaze sweeping the hall. "The president has decided it is better to be safe than sorry. A relief effort and a forward operating base are already being established for those displaced as we speak. With any luck, the facilities will see little use." His tone carried an odd note, as though he hoped for luck, but expected otherwise. "Any further questions?" Silence. No one wanted to press further, not with the marshal standing there. "Very well. Briefings will be handed down to company commanders to distribute to their units. Deployment orders will follow once you are in the field. Until then, dismissed." The chairs scraped back as officers rose. They shuffled into the corridor, voices lowered but not low enough to escape Katya's ears. She caught sharp phrases. Waste of resources. Work for local police. Why the hell Spetsnaz? Katya's lips tightened, but she said nothing. Complaining wouldn't change the mission. Better to stay quiet. Keep her mind on the task ahead. Outside, her unit was already assembled, weapons slung, packs squared away, every man and woman standing ready. Pride stirred in her chest. Other companies still wrestled with gear bags and uniforms, but her people stood disciplined, waiting for her. "Team, attention," Petrov barked. Boots struck the pavement in unison. Katya gave a sharp nod. "At ease. We've received no specific orders yet. Until we do, I want drills. Start with range time. We'll rotate through other exercises as the day unfolds. Fall out." The unit dispersed with efficient precision, the shuffle of boots and clink of gear quickly fading into orderly rhythm. Petrov lingered, stepping closer once the others were gone. "Well?" he asked, voice pitched low. Katya kept her tone neutral. "We're assisting search and rescue during evacuations. Relief operations in Siberia?" Petrov blinked, baffled. "For the Meteor?" "That's what they're saying." His mouth curled into a half smile. "Can't have Russia embarrassed again, like Chernobyl." Her expression hardened. In an instant, she gripped his arm and pulled him aside, her voice sharp but controlled. "Petrov, I tolerate much, but not that. Orders are orders. You'll treat them seriously, especially in front of the men. Am I clear? He looked taken aback. Rarely did she rebuke him, and never without cause. Yes, Captain. My apologies. You're dismissed. Run the range. I'll prepare additional drills, scenarios we may face in the field. What those scenarios would be, she wasn't sure. Herding frightened civilians, carrying children through snowdrifts, playing nursemaid with rations and blankets. She smothered the bitter thought almost as soon as it surfaced. Stop it. Duty is duty. Protecting civilians is no less than combat. Sometimes it's harder. Petrov nodded and strode off, his back straight, already calling orders to the others. Good man, even with his missteps. Katya returned to the barracks. Piece by piece she assembled her kit, plate carrier snug against her chest, helmet clipped under her chin, protective lenses tightening her field of vision, but sharpening focus. At the armory, she checked out her AK-105, its worn grip familiar against her palm, and her Glock 17. She filled her pouches with magazines until the weight pressed comfortably across her frame. Prepared. By the time she stepped onto the range, her men were firing in steady rhythm. Petrov's voice rang out, calling hot, calling cold, guiding the shooters with precision. He was already correcting mistakes, adjusting posture, and shouting warnings. She couldn't fault him. Still, the echo of her rebuke lingered. Perhaps I struck harder than I should have, but discipline had to be kept sharp, even with officers she trusted most, especially with them. She was adjusting her stance, preparing to fire, when movement caught her eye. A major approached, his boots crunching across the gravel. Beside him shuffled a scarecrow of a soldier, gaunt, hollow-cheeked, his uniform hanging loose on narrow shoulders. The man looked like he hadn't slept in days, his eyes sunken, skin pale beneath the brim of his cap. Katya lowered her weapon, saluted crisply. Major. The major returned it and nodded toward the figure at his side. Captain Mikhailov, this man has orders for you. Katya's gaze lingered on the scarecrow. Something about him seemed off. The way he avoided her eyes, the way he clutched a sealed envelope as though it might vanish if he let go. Her instincts prickled. The major's words landed like a cold stone. A replacement for you, he said, then saluted and pushed the recruit forward. Katya's brow tightened. Replacement suggested casualties. No one in her company was dead. She scanned the private's shoulders and face, searching for some sign of battle weathering. None appeared. The boy looked 20 at most, smooth-cheeked, curls unruly and defiant of regulation, spectacles magnifying eyes that darted like a bird's. His uniform hung loose on a narrow frame. He carried a PP-19 with the kind of careless hold that made Katya's stomach drop. Muzzle no one's friend, finger flirting with a trigger, and the safety off. A live round sat snug in the chamber. Private, she said, voice level. The salute he returned was sloppy, the kind drilled out of recruits in the first week of basic. The major's face did not change. Alexe Antonoff reporting for duty. The words trembled. Alexei's cheeks flushed crimson. Embarrassment wore him like a second uniform. Katya did not smile. A single order left her lips, hard enough to bruise. Do not show that lack of discipline again. Report to Lieutenant Petrov and explain yourself. Alexei fumbled, fumbling for the safety as if learning the parts of a gun for the first time. He offered another awkward salute and went to where Petrov already stood, the lieutenant's jaw tight with an impatience that promised corrective schooling. The major watched them go, expression smooth. He's a tech specialist, the man said with a short nod. Marshall requested him. Not a punishment. A question pressed at Katya's throat. What use is a tech specialist for an evacuation and relief operation? The Major responded with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. You'll see. For now, prepare your unit. The man walked away and melted into the flow of officers. Katya held the silence like a held breath. The explanation satisfied no part of her instincts. Petrov's reprimand echoed across the gravel, sharp, clipped, direct. The private straightened as if someone had cinched a strap around his spine. He tried to meet Petrov's gaze and failed. The younger man's hands shook when he checked his magazines. Katya watched that scene, the reprimand doing what it needed, waking a recruit to the rules of survival. A pull of sympathy tugged at her. The look of the boy called up memories of ragged conscripts and frightened civilians pressed into uniform. The army did not always choose the comfortable parts of life. People arrived as they were and either hardened or broke. She should intervene and ease the boy's fear, teach him one calming technique, a stance to trust when the world tipped. That thought flared and was snuffed. Leadership demanded balance between mercy and the blunt instruments of discipline. Petrov would put the private right. Katya moved toward the armory. Gear made sense. Metal and fabric answered with honest resistance. She stripped off the civilian pause in her head and slid the AK-105's familiar weight into her shoulder. The snap of the magazine joining the well sounded like a locking of purpose. On the range, the cold air bit the skin, breath white and bitter. Targets lined up like pale faces. She took a breath, shouldered the rifle, and fired. The first rounds thudded through the berm and strip of snow. Each pull steadied her, drew the knot in her chest down to size. She kept watching Alexe from the corner of her eye, cataloging the boy's movements. Clumsy, yes. Alive, definitely. Something about his presence felt deliberate, placed like a chess piece on a board Katya had not yet seen. She made a mental note to ask questions after drills. For now, commands and bullets would have to do. And with that, true champions of the cause. Let's take a break. We will be back after these messages. You are watching Starplanet, Beyond the Canon.
Out here, the stars don't sleep. They hum to the rhythm of engines and echoes, and warriors who don't back down. Every fight's a verse. Every hero's got bars written in battle scars. And the night's our stage. We rise when the world powers down. We drop heat when the signal fades. No capes, no crowns, just grit, code, and courage. From the city streets to galaxies unknown, we chase what's real, 'cause legends ain't born, they're broadcast. This is the block where the dreamers run wild. Starplanet, dark side, still running the night, still built different.
In the boundless reaches of space, darkness reigns. Pirates and aliens rule unchecked, ransacking colonies and preying on the innocent. The Galactic Federation's power crumbles, leaving entire star systems at the mercy of ruthless outlaws. But amidst this chaos, one vigilante rises to defend the helpless and bring justice to the lawless. They call him Space Ghost.
Ta-dum!
The new beef superior is here, only at Starry's. Wherever you are in the universe, there's always one place that feels like home. Starry's, eat in or eat out, but always eat the best.
Welcome back. Let's continue. Somewhere in the Bering Sea, lunch on the submarine wasn't much to talk about. Lukewarm paste ladled from steel trays, the same tasteless fuel Adrien had endured back in the Corps. He chewed it down anyway. Habit, hunger, discipline, call it what you like. He told himself it was better than going on an empty stomach. That didn't make it taste less like chemicals and cardboard. Meeting the rest of the team was an even worse course. 3 fresh faces, at least to him, sat across the table. 2 ex-Navy SEALs and an Army Ranger. Not one of them had the faintest notion of what their target truly was. Not their fault, perhaps. After all, fighting extraterrestrials wasn't exactly something listed on anyone's service record. Still, Adrien felt the weight of their ignorance. They gathered in the planning room now, gear spread across steel tables, the smell of oil and sweat settling into the cramped space. Adrien strapped on his harness, adjusted the sling on his rifle. The others watched. He had gone heavier than regulation allowed, an M4A1SO-COM rechambered in .50 Beowulf, the weapon bristling with attachments, as much a statement as it was a tool. He'd learned from blood, from mistakes carved into the corpses of people who followed him once. Hornet, the ranger, couldn't help himself. How was the lunch of crayons, Leatherneck? His grin was loose, undisciplined. His real name was Brian Spooner, but Adrien doubted anyone used it outside of a mother or a hospital form. Adrien didn't look up. Better than whatever you were scarfing down. He racked the bolt, the sound sharp in the quiet room. The giant seal, Becker, call sign Viper, chuckled low, his size impossible to ignore. He was built like he'd been grown in a lab to intimidate. Even Adrien, a 6-foot slab of marine muscle, felt almost ordinary next to him. What are you planning to hunt with that thing? Elephant herds in Siberia. The sniper, Scarecrow, David Kim, quiet-eyed, South Korean-born, American-made. Let his voice cut in like a blade dulled at the edge. Nah, Viper. Our fearless leader knows something we don't. Word is he got probed by aliens. That about right? Hornet latched onto it instantly, laughing. That true, Marine? Got the old beam treatment? Real close encounter. He leaned back with a wolfish grin. Sounds sexy. Adrien froze. He could take ribbing, could throw it back with the best of them. But this scraped too close to bones left unburied. He exhaled a laugh, low and sharp, more growl than humor. When he spoke, his voice was sandpaper. Probed? You could call it that. They put blades through my chest. Silence. No snickers, no smart comments. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Adrien didn't stop there. He leaned forward, voice calm, eyes flat. And let's not forget what they did to my men. Peeled them alive, stripped them down to trophies, hung them like butchered deer while carrion picked them clean. That's what we're facing. 3 sets of eyes stared back at him. The laughter burned out. You want the truth? Adrien sneered, loading the last magazine into his vest. I see 3 trophies waiting to happen. 3 names the enemy will wear like a necklace, because you think this is just another mission. But hey, don't worry. I'll be there right beside you. And like any good Marine, I'll regroup in hell with what's left of you. That is, if they leave enough pieces to bury. He slung his rifle and walked out, leaving silence behind him. In the empty corridor, the air was easier to breathe. He didn't believe in this op, didn't believe the brass had a clue, but what he said had needed saying. Later in the changing bay, he stretched his back, slow and deliberate. The pain that had once ruled him was loosening its grip, finally fading without the help of pills. He hated pills. Pills dulled more than pain. They dulled memory, dulled rage, dulled the reasons he kept fighting. When the ache settled into something manageable, Adrien pulled on his base layers, fleece-lined long johns and a thin, wicking shirt. Spartan comfort, but better than nothing. He caught a faint draft crawling through the submarine's steel ribs and thought about the Russian winter waiting above. Cold was cold, whether it was Siberia or Minnesota. He clenched his jaw. Cold was just another enemy, and he had worse enemies to face. Next came the familiar weight of M81 Woodland combat pants, Cry precision cut, just like he'd worn in MARSOC. Muscle memory guided his hands through the motions of cinching straps and checking pockets. He considered pulling on a combat shirt, but in the end decided to keep the tan Henley he'd worn earlier that morning. It wasn't regulation, but it was comfortable. He'd earned the right to comfort where he could find it. The PCU wolf gray jacket went on next, another piece of kit that carried him back to desert nights, when the sand still radiated heat, but the air sliced through like knives. Wolf gray, durable, warm, reliable. Finally, the most important piece, his fugitive GTX hikers. Good footwear meant the difference between finishing the mission or watching your feet rot in your boots. He laced them tight, tugging until the tension sat just right. No compromises when it came to feet. Only then did he realize his gear. In the anger that carried him out of the planning room, he'd left it behind. Damn it, Adrien muttered under his breath. No avoiding it. He'd have to face them sooner or later. He stepped back into the planning room. The 3 operators were hunched over their vests, quietly stripping out backplates and tossing aside night vision. Adrien knew the logic. Shed weight, move faster. But in his mind, it was one more sign they weren't taking the threat seriously. They stopped what they were doing when they noticed him, watching as he crossed the room. Adrien gave a sharp snort of disgust, grabbed his gear, and turned toward the hatch. "Captain," Viper's voice carried. Adrien paused, glanced back. "We wanted to apologize," the big man said, steady but serious. "It was meant to be in good fun." Not to disrespect the fallen Adrien gave a single nod. Enough acknowledgement, no words wasted, and turned to go again. "Wait," Hornet raised a hand. "We'd like your take on the op before we launch." "Your perspective." His grin had softened into something closer to respect. "Maybe over a game?" Scarecrow chimed in, pulling a deck of cards from a cargo pocket. He fanned them theatrically, an olive branch made of paper. Adrien lingered. Poker. Cards were simple, honest. No rank, no politics, just men reading each other and betting on tells. It was the kind of battlefield he still trusted. "All right," Adrien said finally, "but I'm out of cash." No bets. All 3 relaxed, tension bleeding out as they cleared space on the table. Scarecrow started shuffling, cards snapping crisply between his fingers. As they settled in, Scarecrow tilted his head. "So, What's your call sign, Captain? Adrien considered. CIA gave him the freedom to choose, to change it whenever he wanted. He thought of home, Minnesota winters, the bloodline that ran back through cold fjords and harsher lands, a football team that never seemed to win, no matter how hard it fought. It felt fitting. Viking, he said simply. The others nodded, some smirking at the choice, but none mocked it. For the first time since setting foot on the submarine, the air in the room felt a little less suffocating. West Russia, in transit. The train cut across the Russian wilderness like a steel serpent, its wheels grinding out a steady rhythm over frozen rails. Beyond the window of her compartment, the land stretched unbroken in white and shadow. Birch forests stood in clusters, stark black trunks breaking through the snow, their tops swaying against a sky the color of gunmetal. Katya let her gaze linger there, resisting the urge to drum her boot against the floor. The silence of the cabin was a reprieve, though she could not ignore the restless energy tightening in her chest. When the marshal had spoken of deployment, she'd imagined transport planes, helicopters, maybe even armored convoys. Not this. Trains were for moving equipment, bulk cargo, not Spetsnaz units tasked with serious operations. Yet here she was, with her people packed into sleeping cars, supply cars, and a lounge car where they passed the time with the same aimless energy soldiers had shown since the dawn of armies. The lounge had become their refuge. Cards abandoned, they were now engaged in Will You Go to the Ball? A children's game, hardly fit for hardened men. She half expected them to start playing Cossacks and robbers if the boredom stretched longer. They had invited her to join, but she had declined. Let them complain about commanders and swap dark jokes out of earshot. It was a soldier's right, and she would not rob them of it. The cost of her solitude, though, was the icy chill of the sleeping car. She flexed her fingers, numb even inside her gloves, and unwound her braid to reweave it. The strands fell past her shoulders like pale rope. She could almost hear her mother's voice. You should cut it, Katya. That much hair only slows you down. She hated to admit her mother was right. Too late now. It would stay tied back until she found a salon. A sharp rap at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Come in, she called. The door opened to reveal Petrov. He hesitated in the doorway, and it took her a moment to process what she was seeing. Why are you wearing that? Katya asked, caught between disbelief and laughter. Petrov shifted uncomfortably, dressed head to toe in a Berezhka-patterned Spetsnaz uniform straight out of the 1980s. Afghanistan war-era gear, right down to the faded patches. I found it in an old crate. Apparently this train's been running military supplies since forever. Guess no one's opened that box since before we were born. Katya arched an eyebrow. I see what it is, Maxim. What I don't see is why. Planning to start a fashion show in the lounge car? No, he grunted. The belt loop on my actual uniform caught on some jagged piece of metal in the doorframe. Tore a hole right through. Your pants. My pants, he confirmed, deadpan. Given his size, nearly 2 meters, broad-shouldered, built like a pine tree, it wasn't surprising there were no spares. Supplies had been thin for months. She'd bought equipment for her men with her own money more than once. They fit, at least, Petrov continued, scratching his ear. But I wanted your permission to wear them in the field. Katya couldn't hold back the smile this time. Fine. Better than half a uniform. The civilians won't know the difference. Just make sure you grow the proper mustache to match. Petrov's lips twitched. Preobrazhensky already claimed that look. But I'll wear it. Thank you, Captain. Before she could reply, the door burst open again, this time without a knock. Katya's body reacted before her mind did. She sprang to her feet, hand instinctively reaching for a sidearm that wasn't there, stepping in front of Petrov. The intruder froze. Alexe. The boyish private stood gawking at her, curls in disarray, big glasses slipping down his nose. He looked like a school kid who'd wandered into the wrong class. Sorry. I was looking for the bathroom, he stammered. Katya narrowed her eyes. You won't find one here. Common bathrooms at the end of the car. Oh, right. He fumbled with his dog tags, tugging them away from his skin. Can I take these off? They itch. Sensitive skin. Behind her, Petrov gave a short, stifled snort. No, Katya said sharply. Keep them on. Alexe wilted. Oh. She studied him carefully. Still no captain. No ma'am. Not even an attempt at formality. She wasn't a stickler for it, but the omission only deepened her suspicion about why the marshal himself had forced this boy into her unit. He was no Spetsnaz. Not yet. Softening her tone slightly, she asked, Are you enjoying yourself in the lounge car with the others? Alexe blinked at her, uncertain whether it was a test. Not really. I don't think they like me. Alexei's grin tugged at the corners of his mouth. A faint arrogance threaded through his words. I was too good at the games. Katya raised an eyebrow, the smugness in his tone painting a clear picture of why the others kept their distance. Well, I'm sure you'll win them over soon enough, she said, nodding toward the satchel that never left his shoulder. The iPad peeked from its cover like a shield he could hide behind. Maybe you could let them borrow it for the games. You're a tech guy, right? I've never met one who didn't sneak a few diversions onto their gear. Alexe took a small step back, hugging the bag like it contained his very heartbeat. Maybe. I had better find the bathroom now. Goodbye. Petrov tilted his head, his brow knitting in quiet confusion at the exchange. Katya shrugged subtly, dismissing the moment as trivial. I'll head out too, Captain. See you later, Petrov said, voice low, almost hesitant. Katya pressed her lips together and closed the door, exhaling softly as she sank back into her seat. She had leaned too far, prodding Alexe too openly, and now the awkward tension lingered like smoke in the cramped train car. Patience, Katya. She could hear Karek's voice in her mind, steady and calm. Her brother had always preached restraint, a lesson drilled into her, even in the chaos of her early school years. She remembered the nights she'd called him from her bedroom, tears blurring her vision over math problems, too convoluted for her young mind. Their parents had refused to intervene, insisting she solve it herself, and Karek would patiently guide her through each step, breaking the problem down until the solution lay clear before her. But a moving train was a different challenge than a math equation. Here, the stakes felt heavier and the consequences less predictable. Alexe was unpredictable, a variable she couldn't yet measure. Her instincts told her to push, to prod, to shape him into the soldier he would need to be. Her mind told her to wait, to observe, and to remember the patient counsel her brother had so often offered. Keeping her eyes on the pale horizon outside the frost-lined window, she focused on the rhythm of the passing trees, the sway of the car, and the quiet hum of the engine. She would watch, and she would wait. Patience could be as sharp a tool as any weapon, if wielded correctly. Still, it gnawed at her that such restraint felt easier in memory than in practice, especially when the lives of her unit rested on her decisions. Ural Mountain Range, Russia. The train rumbled to a halt, its brakes squealing as frost-laced air poured into the open doors. Katya stepped down, the icy Siberian wind lashing at her face, stealing her breath for a moment. She hiked her gaiter higher, teeth gritting as the cold bit through even her thick fleece layers. "That's brisk," Petrov called out, hopping lightly onto the platform beside her. Despite the weight of his gear, he managed an exaggerated shiver, rubbing his arms as if the wind had pierced straight through his body. Katya allowed herself a small, wry smile. She wondered how long that cheerfulness would last once they were slogging through the cold for hours at a stretch, rounding up civilians. Before she could reply, another figure appeared alongside them. Captain Sokolof, commander of B Company. Katya's stomach sank. She would have preferred a dozen more hours of Siberian wind than dealing with him. At first, she had suspected he harbored a personal vendetta, but it wasn't just her. Sokolof clashed with nearly every other officer, a reputation bolstered by arrogance and a stubborn sense of superiority. He ignored Petrov entirely as he approached. "Mikhailov," he greeted, the words laced with disdain. His American-style handlebar mustache twitched in the wind as he spoke. "Captain Sokolof," Katya replied evenly, nodding with the correct acknowledgement of rank. Respect she could give without surrendering authority. "You enjoy that ice-cold, uncomfortable trip? Can't believe they didn't fly us in," Sokolof sneered. Katya suppressed a sigh, her fingers tightening on her gloves. Could have been worse. His snort was audible, a clear expression of disappointment that she hadn't taken the bait. Then, for what she assumed was dramatic effect, he turned toward Petrov. "Well, Maxim, tired of this little hard ass yet? Ready to come back to a real leader? I won't even make you wear those old uniforms." Petrov shifted subtly, leaning just enough toward Katya to signal his allegiance. "Happy where I am, sir," he said, tone ice cold, leaving no room for negotiation. Sokolov's jaw tightened, and he turned back to Katya with a snarl. "So, you two worried about a little rescue op?" Katya met his glare evenly. "No, I'm concerned I don't have team players backing these men and the civilians." Her words carried weight, unflinching under the icy gusts. He blinked once, then straightened. "I'm under no illusion about my reputation among other company commanders, Mikhailov. But this is our motherland. No matter how stupid this mission might be, I intend to get the civilians out of here, even if I have to walk them out myself, one at a time." Katya caught the unexpected conviction in his voice, but had no time to dwell. Her men were moving, and orders needed to be issued. "Lieutenant, there's a convoy waiting on the far side of the station. Get everyone loaded into the troop carrier. I need to speak with the conductor and engineer first," she instructed, turning her back to Sokolof. "Yes, ma'am," Petrov replied, snapping to attention. His voice carried authority, and soon the rest of the unit shuffled into formation, Alexe trailing awkwardly behind, nearly tripping on the strap of his satchel. Katya's gaze swept over the frost-coated station, then moved to the train operators as they deboarded. She checked her paper copy of the orders, confirming the details, before tucking it safely into her cargo pocket. To her irritation, Sokolof followed her. Didn't he have his own unit to oversee? "Excuse me," she called to the operators. Their eyes lifted, cautious under the Siberian wind. The conductor, a woman with dark hair, stepped forward reluctantly. "Yes? Can we help you?" Katya squared her shoulders, voice crisp and commanding. "My superiors indicated this train would remain here for 2 weeks. Is that correct?" Her question included Sokolof implicitly, though he remained silent behind her. The conductor removed her hat, scratching her head. "Yes. Well, actually, we will depart, heading back west. This train, however, will stay here for 2 weeks to bring everyone back once your mission is complete." She gestured vaguely to the stacked cargo cars. "With whatever you're doing. The 20th. 14 days from now. Don't be late." Katya gave a measured nod, tucking the order back into her pocket. "Thank you. That clarifies things." Both the conductor and engineer returned to their tasks, leaving Katya to head toward the waiting convoy. Her unit had already gathered, Petrov standing tall at the front. Sokolof, at last, drifted back to his own men, leaving her in charge of the first steps of what would undoubtedly be a grueling operation. The wind cut like a blade across the platform as she moved, her breath condensing into small clouds. Every step into the convoy reminded her of the responsibility weighing on her shoulders: civilians, soldiers, and the uncertainty of the mission ahead. In this frozen landscape, every decision mattered. And with that, true champions of the cause, this chapter has come to an end. I thank you for spending this time with us, and I look forward to seeing you again. Please let your thoughts be known in the comments. I truly look forward to reading them. So until next time, please like, comment, and subscribe. I have been your host, Arius. See you in the shadows, my love.